All right, I want to go back to the story I told you about earlier because I think this is actually this is a line in the sand, kind of. This is the Alamo, and what we do from here will determine how long we survive and if we survive. The story I told you earlier about how Obamacare is forcing Catholics to violate their own belief. If they do this, you just take them one piece at a time. And I wondered last week, what is the Catholic Church going to do? Are they going to fight back? Yes, they are. Here to discuss is Bill Donahue. He is the president of the Catholic League. Also with him is Billy Hollowell. He's the faith editor for theblaze.com. In Seattle is Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He is the head of the American Alliance of Jews and Christians. And Robert Morris, he's the senior pastor of Gateway Church here in Texas. Okay, so Bill, let me start with you because we talked about this earlier this morning. Tell me about what the priests read in almost every Catholic church all across America today, because it's pretty stunning.
Yes, I go to Corpus Christi in Long Island, and Monsignor Robert Coyle read the letter that all the bishops had asked the pastors to read. It was the strongest language I have ever heard in my life in terms of something that was going to be established everywhere. Occasionally you'll hear a Cardinal O'Connor, now you have Cardinal Dolan and others come out on their own. But in terms of a uniform collective voice, I've never heard anything quite this strong. They're imploring Catholics to get involved at every level. They quoted the Pope, who just a couple of weeks ago had all the bishops there in their ad limina visit, saying that we can't have separation in church mean that we have to be quiet. We have to address certain issues. This was a public call to arms. I am very, very happy that the Catholic Church is flexing its muscles. We're led by the right person, Cardinal Designate Timothy Dolan, who's the Archbishop of New York. He's the head of the Bishops' Conference. They're not only going to see lawsuits, you're going to see things way beyond this. And unwittingly, the Obama administration has actually brought together liberals and conservatives in the Catholic Church. Let me give you a quick example. Father Jenkins is the president of Notre Dame. Father Snyder is the head of Catholic Charities. Sister Carol Keehan is the head of the Catholic Health Association. All three of these prominent Catholics said that the bishops overread this whole question of Obamacare. We should sit back and understand that Obama will respect the rights of Catholics and he will not go there, so to speak, and try to violate conscience rights. They gave him the benefit of the doubt. Now, Sister Carol, Father Snyder, and Father Jenkins have said they feel betrayed. They feel Obama is wrong. He set them up on this thing. So thank you, Obama. You brought everybody together. And we even have the Washington Post, not ordinarily an ally of the Catholic Church, coming out on our side against the overreach of the Obama administration.
Okay. The pastor who we've had on a couple of times here in Dallas he's just one of the best speakers I've ever heard. He gets it, and is very outspoken. Let me give you a little bit of this letter and tell me if you've heard from the religious elite anything like this. Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, as your bishop, I write to you concerning an alarming matter that negatively impacts the Catholic Church directly and strikes at the fundamental right of religious liberty for all citizens of any faith. The federal government, which claims to be of, by, and for the people, has dealt a heavy blow to the quarter of her people. Yada, yada, yada. We will not comply with this unjust law. People of faith cannot become second-class citizens. We are already joined by our brothers and sisters of all faiths and many others of goodwill in this important effort to regain our religious freedom. I hope and trust she can count on this generation of Catholics to do the same. Our children and grandchildren deserve nothing less. And it still gets worse from there. I mean, have you heard that from the pulpit before?
No, not like that, and I would say it gets better from there, and I know that's what you feel too.
That's what
That letter was absolutely fantastic, standing up for the rights of the American people, not just Catholics, but the American people who don't want Obama to force his beliefs on us.
Okay, now let me go to Rabbi Lapin up in Seattle. Rabbi, my friend, how are you?
Couldn't be better, thank you, Glenn. How about you?
Very good. Tell me how this affects you as a rabbi.
Well, first of all, it has to be recognized as an act of savage anti-religious bigotry. And most of us Jews are not tribalistic. It's not as if we only get worked up when assaults against Judaism take place. In the same way that the Christian world rises up in protest at acts of anti-Semitism, I call and will during the course of the rest of this week be calling on American Jews to protest in the most vigorous terms this act of unprecedented anti-Christian bigotry on the part of the administration. And I think it's very important to note, if I may say, Glenn, that people should not make the mistake of thinking that what the administration is doing is promoting a form of benign secularism against the rigorous oppression of the church and the synagogue. It's not like that at all. What's really going on is that the official state religion of the administration, which I dub secular fundamentalism, is at war with the Judeo-Christian Bible-based faiths. And if you'll pardon me, but in exactly the same way that when Islam invaded Europe, coming up from North Africa into Spain and then into the beginnings of France, one of the very first things they did was either demolish churches and cathedrals and turn them into, or they converted them into mosques. In other words, if you are a fundamentalist, what you need to do is obliterate any presence or evidence of the faith you're combating. I believe that's what's going on. This is not benign secularism at work. On the contrary, this is a form of sinister secularism in the guise of a religious faith called secular fundamentalism, doing its best to obliterate the Bible faiths of Judaism and Christianity. I have no doubt that Jews with conscience, Jews who fight bigotry in any form, are going to rise up in protest and join with our Catholic brethren, our Christian brethren, in defeating this and forcing a retreat.
If they really tried to push this, I will stand with Robert and with Rabbi Lapin and thousands of others, and we would link arms and surround a Catholic hospital and say, over our dead bodies too. You're not good. No, you do not have a right to do this. And it's insane that they would pick this fight, but it says an awful lot about them and their arrogance. Have you ever seen anything, Billy, in watching all of the faith stories that come through that is possibly this uniting with all of the people across all faiths?
No, I have not. And this is very interesting because I think another factor that we have going on here is that very recently the Obama administration lost a Supreme Court battle over religious groups and their hiring practices. So there's a lot of angst that built up during that, and I think it's carrying over here. But it's very interesting, you know, as Bill said, to see liberals and conservatives coming together on an issue like this, because you don't see that very often. So to answer your question, no, I have not seen anything as uniting as this.
All right, so Bill, let me go back to you. If you're a Catholic, you know, what do Catholics have to do? And then, if you would, what can Christians do to help Catholics in this stand? What can we do?
Well, for one thing, there are two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate, one by Fontaine, the other one by Blunt. It's called the Respect for Rights of Conscience Act. And if this were to become the law, we wouldn't have this problem at all. But I can just tell you now that not only are there going to be lawsuits, but I guarantee you this will be the civil disobedience of Catholics of my lifetime. They will not put up with it. The Obama administration would actually have to try and close the hospitals and the universities. I know from working with Archbishop Dolan that he means what he says. They have taken on a fight which I think their logic is flawed. I know what their logic is. Their logic is, well, you know, Catholics are not really exercised about contraception, so they're not going to get too upset about this. They may be right about that. However, they bit off more than they can chew. Quite frankly, this is not about contraception. There are abortion-inducing drugs that are involved in this legislation to try and force this down on Catholic hospitals. And I know what the ultimate goal is. The ultimate goal is to make sure that every Catholic health plan and every Catholic hospital ultimately will provide for abortion on demand coverage. Remember, this president, when he was in the state Senate in Illinois, said that when it comes to health care, he had one exception. If a child is born as a result of a botched abortion, he is not qualified to get any type of medical care. He led the fight on this. The child is born. He's outside the mother's body. He's alive as a result of a botched abortion. And President Obama, at that time, State Senator Obama in Illinois, said, I don't want that child to be attended to. There's a consistent thread here. People have to connect the dots. And let me tell you something. Catholics are not going to put up with it, and neither will Jews, and neither will Protestants. The men that you have on this show tonight is emblematic of the strength of our resistance.
Let me tell you something. Yeah, it's like the Brady Bunch. In this box is a Mormon. In this box is an evangelical. In that box, that one is a Jew, and this is a Catholic. We're all united in this, and I will tell you, Bill, that I disagree with you, and I said this to you on the air earlier today. I disagree with you. It's not about abortion. That's not their ultimate goal. Their ultimate goal, and Robert, I'd love to hear from you on this, I think their ultimate goal is the destruction of faith as we know it, and the establishment of a state faith like you have in Europe, that the state controls it. I think that's their ultimate goal. Anybody? Robert?
Yeah, well, I agree completely with you. And one of the things I thought about as soon as I heard this was that many people who believe in abortion don't want to be called pro-abortion. They want to be called pro-choice. Rather, we're pro-life. You guys, we're pro-choice. You're pro-life, whatever. I want to ask, where's the choice? Where's the choice in this? Because they now have mandated, legalized that I have to have their belief and I have to provide for that in this health care. And I do think they're going toward abortion, but they are going ultimately toward getting all faith-based anything
just crushing
out of our society.
Religion. Rabbi, you're
Yes,
going to be with me this week, and this is kind of the stuff that we're talking about on Thursday, right?
Very much so, and I think it's important to realize that the founding of Western civilization is essentially enshrined in the Ten Commandments. And as a result of that, it's clear that there is no coincidence in the most secularized administration in American history choosing the issue of life to go to war with us all on. And the teaching I do on this with respect to the Ten Commandments, and I think it's something we've discussed in the past, Glenn, is that there is a very good reason why it is that in ancient Jewish wisdom, there is so much emphasis on the fact that the Ten Commandments were given not on one tablet, but on two tablets. It had to be on two tablets because not only is it understandable as the 10 basic commandments that we all know and love, but it's also 5 basic principles of a relationship, 5 basic principles with 2 examples. And on that level, commandment number 1 parallels commandment number 6, 2 parallels 7, and so on and so forth, all the way through to 5 corresponding to 10. Well, commandment number 1 is essentially that opening statement, I am the Lord your God. Corresponding to that is, thou shalt not murder, which is number 6. And the idea is that if we cannot acknowledge the right to exist of the other person, we get absolutely nowhere. If you don't start off with acknowledging that he says, I am the Lord your God, then why keep talking? And similarly, if you can't deal with the fact that the other human being has a right to exist independent of your obnoxious and arrogant judgments, thou shalt not murder only has meaning in the context of I am the Lord your God. The decision of who should be killed and who should be kept alive, who should live and who should die, is not the job of a bioethicist at some university. It's not the job of an official in the White House or anywhere else in the government. It's God's statement alone. I'm the Lord your God, and I'm also the one who says, thou shalt not murder. End of story.
Okay.